That's you people in the other cities getting this, and people here. I surely don't have to babysit and put everything together, but from the last Kyroots, the last tape that you'll see, I'm going to stick two together. I didn't point it out, but they were one led up to the other, plus the last one I even revised slightly. And I just want you to hear it before I start talking tonight. One of them, in the middle of the last reading, was that there was a reality. Who pointed out that although it was not within the normal realm of his responsibility or emotional experience, that if indeed he was ever going to, quote, feel bad, it would be when he had to tell a revolutionist, grow out. Then the revise, that there was a king who sent out, or the king sent out select invitations to a special event. And immediately, some of the invitees commenced a correspondence, and a response expected correspondence with the throne. Some asked if they could arrive late. Others requested that the location be moved, and still others sought reassuring explanations as to why they specifically were invited. Growing weary of the activity, and in a flash of royal effervescence, he sent them all a final message. Hey, come or don't come, but shut the fuck up. Now the public. All right. There is an area that we have hit more than once, kind of sideswiped in passing, but now is the profitable time to finally take a closer gander as it relates to the fact of speech's ascendancy to a place amongst the primary activities and needs of man. And it has to do with there being diverse overlapping time zones. And let's call them, I want to first lay time zones on you because there is, I could use that and just draw out such things as the USSR or the United States. Or the USSR is something like 10 or 12 time zones, and if you tried to take that as being an entity, or even the United States having 4 time zones, and all of the various metaphorical and real, and even symbolic affairs that you could verbally concoct about things happening in one place and it's 5 o'clock and somewhere else at 7 o'clock, and even move in the time zone in a vertical way that you're higher up and you see sunsets and you talk to somebody else and the sun's not set there. It is having to do with the nature of a finite world and what seems to be that other dimension of time. But rather than just leave it at time zones, it should be. We're going to go ahead tonight and I'll refer to it as evolutionary time zones. Consider that all one phrase. And they exist simultaneously in the nervous system of man. And rather obviously, it should be, once you begin to see it, that there exists on the planet, just quite obviously, once it's pointed out, separate cities, cultures, nationalities, religions, everything that seems to delineate the secondary world into observable, usable, important, nameable operations. All of these different, and just lump them all, whatever you want to call it, culture, civilization, societies, all of these exemplify different stages in the evolutionary development of man. And it has nothing whatsoever to do with a qualitative analysis that there are people who are better, there are people who are better off, there are people who are more advanced. It is true, but it's meaningless, as you should see in a minute. It is meaningless in the fact that there cannot be, if you're going to take the kind of qualitative judgment that the ordinary mind must deal with when it is operating on polarized energy in a three-dimensional world, you could say, well, wait a minute. at least metaphorically, we would have to say that if there is a higher function to a ladder, the best part would be the highest rungs. The whole point of a ladder is to get up, right? Right, all right, I can go with that. Then the best part has got to be the upper rungs, right? Okay. So what does that mean? Well, why don't we dispense, do I have to finish this, with the lower ones? Of course, you should say to yourself, thanks be to the gods that you can't do that to yourself. Back before you were so fortunate as to run across this, of people trying to improve themselves. Because what they want to do is cut themselves off at the knees without knowing it. Life won't allow it, but it's the old idea that is wired in that helps keep energy turned up of people believing, I want to change one part of me. What I want to do is I want to magnify the higher rungs of my ladder. That is, the parts that I think are best about me. The times that I have great, humane, insightful thoughts. But the rest of that crap, like when I want to dress up like Carmen Miranda and hang around the bus station, or when I feel like I'd like to kick everybody's ass that doesn't agree with me, let's do away with that. All right, you can do that. It's quite simple. I've told you how to do that with a Phillips screwdriver right up through the nose. Or those of you that sounds too crude, is pay someone. Go to a neurosurgeon and have yourself cut right there. You can do all that. You can cut yourself off. But now I assume you see the folly of this. It's back to what we were saying. It's not better. It's not worse. And I can't stick around with this. But it is that there are different. Out here is where we're starting. That's of no great consequence to somebody attempting to do this, but I want you to see that it is a reality and it manifests itself in such a way that many people believe that they continue to dance and fight over that which they're not dancing and fighting over. It just appears to be that way. But it is that in these distinctions, in these different cultures, / religions, / societies, / nationalities, / families even, that there is a difference, and the difference, although they would not necessarily use these terms, they would agree, if they just heard it prima facie and didn't go any further, they would agree that it has to do with there being a different scale of development and evolutionary progress of things. And of course, everybody who heard that nodded would go, yes, I agree with that. And it just shows all these people that all the Philistines with whom I'm surrounded, they're still down at the reptile age. They're dressed up and walking around, but they got lizard brains. They would love that. That is not it. It is that there is, may I remind you from the last few nights about the complexity of life and the need for it to grow. Notice, before we get into the individual, what this does externally. Now, to take it, as you surely could have already done yourself crudely, you could take what I have just said and run with it on a very simplistic level and say, well, that's true. Everybody knows that religions have been fighting each other. Races have been fighting each other. When they draw out some kind of nationalistic boundaries, the first thing they do once they divide up and say, all right, this is, North Slobovia and over there South Slobovia. Now we got ourselves settled. What do we do first? All right, let's attack those other guys. Anybody can say that. There is a reality to it, though. Now listen. The external diversity causes these different groups, forget fight and all that, it causes them to want to converse. It causes them to want to talk to one another. This division causes them to complain, to compare, in general, carp. At the different time zones. Forget good or bad or above. They are different zones. There are different evolutionary time zones even out there. What the division does is create more complexity. Now it does, from very simple historic city views, it does seem to cause physical conflict. That's not the point. That is a form of complexity. But the basis is this, of it being different stages simultaneously on this planet out there, that you have different stages, different evolutionary time zones operating simultaneously, all breathing the same air, all walking this planet. What it primarily does, the basis of it, it makes them want to talk to one another. After that, it may get into, are you talking to me? And it may get into a fist fight. It may get into a skirmish. It may get into, here, would you hold this hand grenade? I'll be back in a minute. That is simply another form of complexity, which is not the norm. It is not what we're talking about, but it is the complexity, the need for life to increasingly be complex. And we are already, according to you people, you convince me, established the fact that part of man's responsibility in helping life to grow is to create complexity. Because there is no other observable creature, there's no other activity going on your planet of things becoming more complex. The fauna, the flora, it stays like it is, more or less. There's only one creature that seems to have the ability to be more complex. I know back in the city, ordinary minds would say, well, it's the only creature that has the ability to screw up, to change, to ruin things. Yeah. More complex. I could say change, but it's meaningless because change is open to polarized descriptions, because half the people on the planet, the ordinary people, say, oh yeah, man can change. Notice, running it in the ground. And the other half, more or less, might say, well, it may be, but we're going to pull ourselves together. The gods will help us out. That's not it. So that's why I wasn't using change. It is simply complexity. You should be able to see it. It covers it all. And it is only man that appears to be able to contribute to complexity. This, since humanity has forever wanted to talk about, ordinary people, about some kind of singularity about man. Most of your forefathers wanted to talk about man being singular because he was the only one who had a master chart. No, a soul. A soul, that was it. I get those confused sometimes. But he was the only one who had a soul. Well, at any rate, as all of you know, because you don't have to look to religion or your grandmother, all you got to do is look down in your own little college or high school heart. And everybody responds to the idea that man is in some way unique. There is at least one area that you could establish that there is a singularity of man. And that is that he is the only creature who can observably contribute to the increasing complexity of life. And that is, tonight, what I want you to see, that is because he is the only local creature who can live and who can function simultaneously in different evolutionary time zones. And now let's leave the wonderful world out there, and it's in here. It's true out there, but that's enough time to devote to that. It is in here. That is what, if you want to use it as an operational view, is the only supportable view of how man is singular. You can talk about his thumb. You can talk about he's the only one who gets haircuts. You can talk about he's the only one who worships gods. He's the only one who pays taxes. He is the only one who can contribute and become more complex and then operate himself individually. Now, we've already established there's no doubt he can do it collectively, institutionally. But he individually can live and function simultaneously in different evolutionary time zones in here, personally. There is a great arrangement of efficiency in this. And one aspect of it being that he can continue to churn up energy and make the need for our increased complexity in life, he can make it a one-man game. He is the only creature who can churn energy while being alone. Some of you perhaps should stop up your ears. I was going to give you an epigram that is not for the faint of logic. Oh, what the hell, I'll do it. They can't arrest you for words, can they? Not only is man the only creature that can talk, he is also the only creature who can talk to himself. Do I have to go through that, or can you do it to yourself and go, what? By having, still some of this I'm going to do is the side swipe again because I don't want to lay on it too much. How about it is as old as recorded history, if that means anything to you, that, let us say in the Western world, even the Homers, or Homer, in case he thinks I was lumping in with somebody else that wasn't around. The idea of Greek gods you can take as being a forerunner of the modern idea of a split psyche in man, there being a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. You can take religion itself, but you can take the idea of Greek gods as it was man's nervous system beginning to talk, and he thought, well, it's spirits. There's things going on. You could look at it as being a seminal form of religion. But notice, everyone now, all the way from the temporally minded to those who are still religiously inclined, everyone on this planet that can think at all, which we'll now assume includes everyone, that they're somewhere in the thinking evolutionary time zones. They may be way behind other people using that kind of description. But everyone, let's assume now on this planet, thinks. The nervous system talks. If they're alone, do they shut up? Not hardly. No, they're not supposed to. Not only is man the only creature who can talk, he's the only creature who can talk to himself. Notice, he can churn energy, and he has throughout the ages attributed to gods, spirits, demons. Some parts of in some evolutionary time zones, they get attributed to their ancestors. That it's the spirits of my departed, perhaps not gods, but it's my forefathers and foremothers talking to me. And of course, up to today, those that would pass for being the probably most advanced, or at least up to date, in a city view of the evolutionary time zone progress would be those that simply accept the fact that we have a conscious mind, and then we have areas within the psyche of man that operate at such a level and make us, directly and indirectly, make us behave in certain ways of which we have no conscious knowledge. It's an accepted fact. It is reality. I am trying to get you to consider that there is a much more specific way to look at this, much more operational. And that is within your own nervous system, you have got as many evolutionary time zones as the USSR did. You have got them. Now think about it. Surely we gave enough time for you to get the idea that on this planet right now, although everyone, let's say, is in some evolutionary time zone, that everybody on this planet talks, that everybody on this planet has a nervous system that speaks, you do know it's just a simple fact that there are people who are less advanced by any definition, not my definition, by life's definition, by the city definition. There are people on this planet who are less advanced than others, and it's not just drawn on nationalistic boundaries. There are people in this city, wherever you're watching this, in New York, Paris, Omaha, Rio, Berlin, Moscow, Tel Aviv, anywhere, there are people who are less advanced and people who are more advanced. And just forget all ideas of it being broken up into sociological and financial. That all fits. It's all reflection. It is a simple fact, though, that there are people in different time zones insofar as how they are advanced evolutionary-wise here. All right? Now forget all that. There is that same. It is as distinct in the individual. There is as many, which is, I haven't done it in a while with you. I used to kid and talk about the Mississippi in you, or the New Jersey in you. Everybody's got it. You have got the slums, you've got the ghettos, you've got areas in your own nervous system in which you are barely civilized. You've got areas in your own nervous system, in a sense, in which you have almost no business walking. And now everybody knows this. Of course, they take it, the ordinary mind takes this as being a question of morality, or they would take it as being at least a question of humanistic values, if they were not religious. That is, that they won't tell themselves, straighten up, but for some reason, to shape up. It's only the revolutionist that could tell himself, and act as his own drill sergeant, and say, you son of a bitch, shape up. For those of you that, I know you kind of laughed at it, whether you made any sense out of it, that it would only be that kind of mind that could say, shape up, and the person not even know what the hell it meant, and not care. That is, it had no point. It is not, hey, shape up. You've got these terrible, uncivilized ideas in you, and you shouldn't have them. And if you're ordinary, you go, well, why not? And you say, because you were raised as a Catholic, because you were raised as a decent human being. Yeah, you're right. A revolutionist, if you are a revolutionist, as it was also pointed out in one of the Kyroots tonight, when you get beyond the ordinary bounds of city collective thought, there is no real future for anybody with a past. That is, if you're going to tell yourself straighten up, and you say, well, why? You say, well, because you should be a good Methodist or a good Jew, or you're supposed to be a Hindu. Yeah, you're right. That's nothing. Keeps the world together. But that has nothing to do with revolutionist thought. If you have got to have a reason, then it's nothing. You're still part of the collective scheme of things. You do not understand what you're doing. It is a civilizing effect. It is a part and parcel of why there is this collective wisdom. Why in every locale, not just drawn on city boundaries or nationalistic or racial, but why there is collective thought and why it does strike the individual, the ordinary individual, that the more minds who are thinking that something is correct, whether it be in a religious sense or just in a philosophical or humanist sense, the more people who are thinking that something is correct, the more the individual, the ordinary individual there feels its correctness. It's supposed to. That is the effect of it. But that has nothing to do with being able to think. That has nothing to do with expanding into a time zone that in a sense does not yet exist. It has nothing to do with pushing your own intelligence past the point that you have to say, well, this can't be true. Why? And there's a reason. Or I believe this is true. Well, why? And there's a reason. Or just say, hey, look, you're going to have to do better, damn it. Shape up. And you go, yeah, you're right, I got to. And if you think there's some reason you've got to, then I hope you're finding this an interesting hobby, because you're certainly not involved with it. There is no reason to do this. There's only a reason to be ordinary. There's only a reason to be moralistic, to be decent, to be humane, to be politically, intellectually, socially, culturally correct. The only reason to do it is to do it. That is not thinking. Not in the sense that you people have labeled it new intelligence, or as calling it revolutionary thought. It is not. There is a way in which, right quick, I'd like for you to consider there is almost another, not another, yes, another operational definition of what civilization is itself. But a part of the difference in the different revolutionist time zones, in the individual and out there. So now that we've set them both up, you listen to yourself and take it both ways. The part of the difference in these different time zones is manifested in how much more one area out there and in here, how much more one area is willing to talk about things than are the other areas. Now, that's why one reason, if we give you another quick view of why you cannot, I know you want to. Your mind, that's where you're wired up. You can't help it, you or anybody, to hear when I started talking about different evolutionary time zones and saying somebody's more advanced, and you think, yes, well, it's obvious that some group over here, or my group, my hometown is more advanced, my religion is more advanced than these people, Episcopalians are more advanced than Southern Baptists, liberal, political politically speaking, liberals are more advanced than these old hard-shelled conservatives. You can say all that, and it does reflect the nature of what seems to be life, but it doesn't tell you anything. I mean, if that is your breakthrough of what you have, can now see, I hope you've enjoyed life. I hope you find life precious, because that's all you've got. That is no insight to anything. There's another way to look at it. What appears to be, instead of a qualitative judgment, because if you've got some view, it's a qualitative view, and if you've got a qualitative view, you got no view. You're in the city with the rest of them. You may think you're on the Titanic, but you are attracting a hardier breed of icebergs. You just don't know it. That is, you may think you're on the Titanic as it originally sailed off. That is, we're unsinkable. Instead of seeing it in ordinary view that one group is more advanced evolutionary because of some reason, forget some reason. Forget any reason you ever heard. I've already given it to you. If you weren't listening, there's one way to look at it, that the distinct operational difference between these different time zones is that one group will be more able, prepared, willing, wired up to talk about things than another. That manifests very directly the particular time zone, the general time zone, evolutionarily speaking, in which some group resides. Some groups on this planet, if you want real quick out there, you should be able to hear this, not just some foreign country, in your city. There'll be a group of people, there'll be neighborhoods, there'll be areas on the planet, in a city, in a locale, that the people are more prepared. They seem to be more willing. They seem to be more able to, quote, talk about things than others. The others just seem to act. Or about the extent of the talk is, hey, mother, turn around so I get a better shot. That sort of thing. Now, internally, how about all the ideas that the ordinary mind has had about evil spirits and demons, subconscious traumas? Inside of a person's own nervous system, there are areas that are more prepared to talk, more able to talk, more wired and primed to talk than other areas. That is one of the operational delineations distinctly between evolutionary time zones of different ones. I can't resist backing up for a second. For those of you who can see some of this in a wider scale out there in what seems to be life, in a historical context, in an external, political, social, religious, every other, the secondary world, in other words, what seems to be civilized distinctions and lack thereof that causes people to run at loggerheads, groups of people, it's their ability to talk about things. And ability, you're going to have to put a whole bunch of slashes. Ability, preparation, need. And we're not talking about the people, we're talking about life. That life needs some group somewhere, but they appear to be more capable, more able, more functionally capable of talking about things as opposed to just acting. That is not only an operational definition of civilization, that is an operational definition or distinction between these different evolutionary time zones. Is that at any given time, anywhere on this planet, at any given time, anywhere in your and anybody's individual nervous system, there are areas that are more prepared, able, willing to talk about things than other areas. But from an ordinary view, it is taken as there is some evil afoot that my parts of my nervous system won't talk to me, or there's some sort of uncontrollable, unconscious, historic, personal traumas that I have suffered that I cannot work out. I can't afford analysis anymore. I've only been in analysis 12 years and I just can't work it out. Having that kind of past from the revolutionist view, you got no future. The promise is very slim. If you're still dragging around the Titanic, you can remember one thing is that one old sorehead once pointed out. You remember this over at the old weekly soreheads meeting when they have the Let's Be Positive segment of the program, and one old guy, if you recall, at least he pointed out, he said, well, at least a sinking ship is going somewhere. See, that's the thing of that other Kyroot tonight for our poetic viewers. But not only Do we live in a prison? Nay, not just a prison, and terrifying solitary confinement. Yeah. The ship may be sinking. No, there ain't no maybe. It is sinking. Oh, good. Then you know you got a past. Then you know that you are a part of something greater. You just don't look at it that way, because what is the greater collective thought in life? And it doesn't have to be the old Soreheads convention. It's your religion. It's the collective thought of man, which in general is what? The ship is sinking. It's only possible. There's this possibility that you may have met, let's say maybe one person in your life that understood that the ship is not sinking. So perhaps you met one person that understood. I'm not talking about just said it. I'm not talking about that you met Dale Carnegie's half brother who was trying to push his new book. I'm talking about somebody that might have actually understood it. You might have met one person. It's one person against, what's the population now? 15 billion? The ship is sinking. That is the collective wisdom of humanity. Whether religion has done it specifically, whether it's some philosophy, and you don't have to be philosophically inclined, you don't have to be religious. You can go home being that wonderful, self-churning machine that can do energy, who can play this game solo. You can take both paddles and play both sides. You can go home alone and think, wait a minute, I don't believe in that stuff that humanity, that everybody else, religions, everybody else tells me that life is falling apart and sinking. All right, I don't believe it. I'm too smart. All right, how do I feel about it personally? The life's falling apart! I'm sorry. I shouldn't make fun of life falling apart. I can't resist, nor should I. It's bad. A psychiatrist told me it's bad. And since he gave me that information free, I'm going to use it. That it's bad to resist, so I will not resist. There are two continuing, but they just keep popping up, in your face, up-to-date, modern examples of the complexity of overlapping time zones. And what it does, the way it creates complexity, what from ordinary views, men would take this, what I'm about to say, they'd take it as being either sarcasm, or they might take it as proper criticism, in which case they would nod along and think, boy, you're intelligent, you agree with me. But it would range somewhere from just some kind of outside the castle sarcasm of some old sorehead sticking out his tongue, or you're right on it. Doesn't matter. But the examples are there, and there is a complexity to it that no one notices. So you being able to be smart enough not to take this as being a yay or a nay, it is just going on, and people do yay and nay it and fight over it, at least verbally. And they do not see it for what it is. And one of them is, now remember, I'm talking about the overlapping. It's the simultaneous. Now we're talking about, I'm going to say out there because I said it's examples that are up to date and apparently right in your face, so we won't talk about you, we're talking about life. And it's the overlapping simultaneous complexity of different time zones, different evolutionary time zones right out there in life working. And it's simultaneous, though, that there are different time zones right there superimposed on each other. And it creates things that people take all the way from being worthy of attack, worthy of denunciation, to being just incendiary or possible incendiary situations that could ruin us all. All right, here we go. That's enough of a preface, right? Probably more than enough. The overlapping complexity of different evolutionary time zones. One is, continues to go on, but now it's just, maybe some of you are, be specifically aware of it, an activity as backward and simplistic as is religion is now being run, more and more, is now being led by sharp-dressed, literate guys with, I don't know what to make, with doctorate degrees in theology. I'm still assuming I'm not speaking to the absolutely tongue-tied and those that are feet nailed to the city level. But you have got to see religion as being as backward and simplistic as it is, but now who is running them? More and more. That those running them seem to be more and more sophisticated. That they seem to be more and more just right at the forefront. Which is what I meant by sharp dressed. And degrees, they're doctors of theology. I don't even want to think about it. Now, I'm just doing that for dramatic effect. But think about it. That something, and they don't, as far as city institutions, from a more expansive view, it's not an attack. It has to do with the evolutionary time zone. But nothing really matches religion as being as backward and simplistic. I mean, it's in a league by itself. But notice, it simultaneously goes on. Life needs it or it wouldn't be here. But notice, it's less and less. You do not have guys in sandals. Forget, the strays out there on the fringe. You do not have Jesuses and Buddhas wandering around, starving. You expect. There's no attack. You expect a man to be well-dressed. You expect him to have a degree. You expect him to have, nice clothes. You expect him to be sophisticated, civilized. Think about it right quick. We're running out of time. That there is nothing in the same league as backward and simplistic, as out of date from one view as religion, and it's more and more being operated by, and here he is, Dr. So-and-so. And it's the same backwardness as it was 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, but now, simultaneously, it appears to be men who are almost a paradigm of sophistication. There's one more. Got 1 minute? There's one more I can't resist. That you have what amounts to, well, it doesn't amount to, it is. What's going on is erudite, civilized men furnishing serious forums for semi-literate savages to serve up spirit-laden ecological warnings. I mean, all of you in your own nervous system have got your own PBS station you can check, but if you have to, turn on a PBS station, and you have now guys, forget religion, it's on the same level, but you have guys, 2 or 3 doctors, the Smithsonian is sending them down, and they have got these people who are just barely literate in a jungle somewhere, and they're telling these stories about Mother Earth, and about spirits, and about how Mother Earth is, hates the way that humans have come in and what it amounts to is denouncing progress. And they're civilized, educated men now not only do this and furnish a forum, there are others who watch it and make speeches supporting it going, yes, yes, yes. Do you hear me? I mean, all of you who laughed and thought it was some kind of laugh about something as backward and simplistic, to quote myself, as religion being run now by sharp-dressed men with doctorates in theology. Some of you went, ha, ha, ha. Now your own nervous system, you may think it's a little more up to date, but you still miss it. It's the same thing. The kind of men who are probably atheists, or who would say, yeah, I'm above religion. We got to worry about the ecology and the beauty of our own planet and our own salvation. And what do? Now remember, we're not picking on anybody. I'm trying to get you to see the overlapping complexity of simultaneously existing in functional time zones. You have these men now, all of them together have got strings of degrees. They got books, papers, and they go down, and where do they go? They go out and find people, savages, semi-literate savages. That is somebody in a backward evolutionary time zone, and they fall. And they say, speak to us of the wisdom. And these people speak, which is fine. I mean, it's a hobby, Peter Pan, it's mythology, but they begin to speak about spirit-laden warnings. What you foreigners doing to Mother Earth. The spirit of the planet, very upset. That's people over there who are living to be 20 years old. They're eating, or 25, they're eating grub worms. They kill each other. If you walk one pass, you find it past the guy's hut, and if you don't, turn and do this, then he and his family come out, and it's I mean, it's expected. They have to, or it's immoral. They will kill you and find your mother and cut off one of her legs. That's who they're going to for some kind of direction and help about how we should be living. One more time where I take it is not an attack on them, but notice it is operating simultaneously, and it's as far removed from the time zones, evolutionary speaking, as can be, and yet they merge. You want to talk about complexity? We're completely out? Okay. In that case, bye.